Welcome to the Depth Dive. Today, we're tackling a question as old as time, really, but one that feels so relevant right now. What truly makes a life successful? And, well, how do you build a strong character?
Such a core human question, isn't it? And for this deep dive, we're looking at it through quite a unique lens, this book from 1895, over a century old, shared by you, our listener.
Exactly. And you might think, okay, 1895, how relevant can that be? With AI, social media, constant change.
Right, seems like a different universe.
But what's really striking is how its ideas, things like self-reliance, hard work, finding your purpose, they just speak so directly to, well, the stuff many of us are grappling with today.
They feel surprisingly timeless, offering this perspective on, inner strength when the outside world feels pretty chaotic.
So our mission here for this deep dive is to really dig into this old text, pull out the key insights, the nuggets of wisdom, and see what it offers you, navigating your life today. Maybe some surprises in there.
Let's get into it.
Okay, so let's unpack this. The book kicks off with a pretty bold idea. It echoes Alexander Dumas, saying the world is calling for a man. And this isn't some hero figure. It's you. It is I. It is each one of us. So the challenge right away is how to constitute oneself a man.
And the book's answer is, well, it puts it squarely on your own will. It says, nothing harder if one knows not how to will it, nothing easier if one wills it. Basically, building that inner foundation, it's all down to individual choice, individual volition.
Which immediately shifts the focus, doesn't it? Away from just circumstances towards your own internal power.
Right. And it's not romantic about it. It actually critiques this superficiality it saw even back then. Mechanics who just picked up a trade and sort of botched at everything, or professionals becoming creatures of technicalities.
Losing their personality and just being good at the motions.
Exactly. Losing the person behind the skill. It suggests skill alone isn't the goal. The book mentions Humboldt's ideal, seeking the highest and most harmonious development of his powers to a complete and consistent whole. It's about being, well, integrated.
So it's not just about being good at something, but being a developed person doing that thing. The source really champions someone who is larger than his calling.
Yeah.
Seeing work not just as, a way to pay the bills, but as a place for self-development, education and culture, discipline and drill, character and manhood.
It completely reframes work, doesn't it? It's where you build who you are, not just where you earn. And finding the right work is key. It quotes Carlyle, "Blessed is he who has found his work."
Finding your line of talent, as Swift put it, your calling.
And it uses Whittier as an example, saying true success comes from that must, the deep inner drive, the love for what you do, and sticking with it, fidelity.
It has to be internal. So how does the book define this person, this man, capable of this?
Well, it's not just about being strong or smart. It's about knowing how to do a man's work, think a man's thoughts, mark out a man's path, and bear a man's weight of character and duty. It's embracing capability and responsibility.
Okay, so once you start building that inner foundation, the book moves on to seizing opportunity. There's this great quote from a Roman cardinal: "Fortune visits everyone, but when she finds he is not ready to receive her, she goes in at the door and out through the window."
That's such a vivid image, isn't it? Opportunity is there, but you have to be poised, ready to actually, receive her. The book calls opportunity coy.
Doesn't hang around.
No. And the stories really bring this to life. Like Ulysses Grant, needing butter leads him to ask about a West Point spot. It wasn't just luck.
Right. The book credits his shrewdness to see the chance and the promptness to seize it.
It's about having your eyes open and being ready to act. Like Isaac Rich, seeing that ship cargo and just deciding instantly. Or Mr. A quickly getting men together for that ice-breaking job. Moments of action.
And that story of the Baltimore lady, poor for years, sitting on a fortune, this diamond bracelet lost in her cloak lining.
Oh, yeah.
Rich all along, but didn't know it because she hadn't looked closely at what she possessed. It's such a powerful metaphor for maybe opportunities we overlook in our own lives, things hidden in plain sight.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? What potential might be right there if we're not paying attention? The book also applies this to business, saying the safest business deals with basic necessities.
But also comforts, luxury, culture, basically finding and filling a need.
And the examples are so down to earth. The guy inventing the metallic lacing hook because he needed one. The barber inventing clitoris. The man making a washing machine for his wife.
Right, and A.T. Stewart's rule, learn the hard way, never to buy anything which people did not want. Simple, but profound.
It really boils down to seeing a genuine need and being ready and ingenious enough to meet it, but just seeing the opportunity. That's not the whole story, is it?
No way, because this leads straight into what feels like the absolute core of the book, paying the price. And it's not sugar-coated.
Not at all.
It quotes Emerson, "The gods sell anything and to everybody at a fair price," and Juvenal, "All desire knowledge, but no one is willing to pay the price."
Oof. Yeah, the book is pretty blunt. Success isn't free. It demands serious effort. Munger's quote is direct. No road to success, but through a clear, strong purpose.
That purpose sets the direction, but the effort that actually builds the road.
And the examples of that effort are, well, intense. Sir Walter Scott churning out volume after volume, just relentlessly.
Edmund Burke, a prodigious worker. George Stevenson, working through lunch breaks just to buy books.
These aren't just quick bursts. It's about sustained discipline to work over time. And the book stresses that this price is often paid for a long, long time before any recognition comes.
Right, like Samuel Morse, years as a painter before the telegraph breakthrough.
Or Admiral Farragut, 64, when his big chance came in the Civil War, but that's success. Built on half a century's preparation. Havelock waited 34 years.
Decades of quiet work. It's about that persistence, isn't it? Through all the rejections, the setbacks, like Columbus pitching his idea again and again after failures.
Absolutely. And there's that brilliant story about Howard Burnett, the artist, charges 1,000 francs for a quick 5-minute drawing.
And when someone questions the price for 5 minutes work,
He says it took him 30 years to learn how to do it in 5 minutes. Perfect. It captures the hidden value of all that accumulated effort.
such a contrast to that young preacher in the book, writes a sermon quickly, thought nothing of it, and, well, had no lasting impact.
Yeah, compare that to Virgil. Supposedly spending 7 years on the Georgics, maybe just a few lines a week sometimes.
But creating something that lasted nearly 2 millennia.
It really hammers home that quality, that lasting impact, often needs patience, meticulous effort. Which brings us to a really key part of paying the price, concentration.
Yes, Chapter 10's title, "To be great, concentrate." Simple as that.
Horace Mann called it one of the most valuable skills. Emerson said power grows through continuance in one direction.
The book uses these great images. The boy describing the donkey engine perfectly because it's all he focused on. The chemist aiming his guns continually upon one point.
And Philip D. Armour, his friend said, he just locks onto a goal and goes straight for it. Never gives up. That kind of focus. Wow, it feels extra challenging today with all the distractions.
Totally. And the book warns against dissipation, but not just, bad habits. It means scattering your energy on too many respectable things, too.
Right, like worrying about property, too many social events, politics, gossip, even just dabbling in hobbies without focus.
A person of concentration, it argues, simply has no time to devote to useless trifling. They guard that focus fiercely.
And the one resource that concentration absolutely depends on, the thing effort uses up, is time. Procrastination is called the greatest thief.
That Cervantes proverb is chilling. By the street of by and by, one arrives at the house of never.
Ouch. And Charles Buxton's practical advice, you will never find time. If you want time, you must make it.
You have to actively carve it out. One today is worth 2 tomorrows. Time just keeps moving, accepts no sacrifice.
So managing your time, focusing your effort.
Yeah.
Non-negotiable. And tied right into this is thoroughness. That story about David Maydole, the blacksmith.
Yeah, asked for a good hammer, decides to make the best hammer possible.
His rule, when I make a thing, I make it as well as I can, no matter whom it is for. That internal standard, like the whiten make on machinery, becoming a mark of quality.
It's not just about meeting the spec, it's about exceeding it for yourself. Stephen Girard testing that guy Smith, making him move stones back and forth.
This is pointless, right?
Totally. But Smith just did the job well, thoroughly, without complaining, and that proved his character, earned Girard's trust.
Even small things need it. Pascal rewriting a letter 13 times.
Shows the commitment. The book stresses that great difference between going just right and a little wrong.
Which connects perfectly to the idea of trifles, Longfellow. For the gods see everywhere, young, trifles, life. The argument is that big success often hinges on close observation of little things.
Like Franklin saying a child's utility is that it may become a man seeing potential in the small. Or Dick Ferguson, the spinner.
Just noticing that chalking the bobbins helped.
And that simple observation saved millions. It shows the power of paying attention to details.
And the conclusion is really powerful. The totality of a life is the product mainly of little things. It's all those small efforts, small choices adding up.
Okay, so you're building character, paying the price with effort, focus, thoroughness, but life throws curveballs, right? What about when things get tough? Opposition.
The book tackles that head on. Hardship. It acknowledges poverty is terrible, but then quotes Ouida. It's the north wind that lashes men into Vikings.
Wow. And Shakespeare's lowliness is young ambition's ladder. It's not just a tough start, it's potentially a strong foundation. The book notes how many successful people started poor.
And failure gets reframed too. Wendell Phillips. What is defeat? Nothing but education. A life's disaster may become the landmark for a new direction.
Like Grant's business failure pushing him toward his military command.
Exactly. Difficulties aren't just tests, the book argues. They actually strengthen you. They scare and keep out unworthy competitors. It's that some people only find themselves after being baffled, rebuffed.
Trials unlock their virtues. Defeat is the threshold of their victory. Adversity gives you elements of greatness.
Love the analogy it uses. The sturdy, rugged mountain oak plank, weathered by storms, versus the flimsy sapling of the forest when pressure hits.
Makes sense. And even criticism can fuel you. Sheridan, told he'd never be an orator, firing back, "It is in me, and it shall come out."
Byron stung into action by a bad review. Curran spurred by ridicule. Resistance can really forge resolve.
And facing all this takes courage. The book literally says, "Quit yourselves like men." Coleman, "Cowards have no luck. Don't shrink away. Shrink and you will be despised."
Those stories of physical courage are intense. Napoleon's drummer boy, Jacques, swimming ashore with the rope.
But the book seems to put even more weight on moral courage. Prudence Crandall opening her school to black children despite huge opposition.
Right. Or Shallar Colfax and Grant, quietly refusing wine at fancy parties, sticking to principle under social pressure.
It's that courage to be true to yourself, your values, even when it's unpopular. The book warns against being timid, like Uriah Heep. A firm, decisive spirit clears around a man.
And those stories of sheer willpower, Balzac declaring, "I will be a king," Mirabeau saying of the impossible, "It shall be done," the inventor pushing through poverty, illness, contempt, Napoleon's focus.
So Napoleon's also maybe a caution about where you direct that will?
Good point. And central to handling all this, the storms and the will, is guarding your weak point. Self-control, Plato. The first and best of victories is for a man to conquer himself.
The Bible verse 2, "He that ruleth his spirit is better than conquering a city." Self-denial is fundamental.
The examples are stark, aren't they? The drunkard falling in the well repeatedly until his wife makes him pledge. The tamed tiger tasting blood and reverting.
Yeah, strong warnings against letting your guard down, giving in temptation, big or small.
It's about mastering passions, pride, impulses, listening to that still small voice within. The book says the worst shame is losing our own good opinion.
Makes you think. It also notes that paradox, brave soldiers who quail in society, shows everyone has weak spots you need to know to understand your strength.
Washington's self-possession through years of crisis is held up as the ideal. Never provoked, never deluded.
And Horace Mann's point about youth's choice between truth and error, that idea of a free mind which is jealous of its own freedom, guarding its own empire over itself, that inner sovereignty.
So beyond building that core strength, the book looks at things that, well, enrich life, like economy.
Right, and it's not just about pinching pennies. It's always making the income exceed the outgo, controlling spending.
Franklin, Washington, they track their expenses closely. Cicero's line is great. Not to have a mania for buying is to possess a revenue. Controlled desire, not just hoard cash.
Macabre's rule, income just above spending equals happiness, income just below equals misery. Horace Greeley called debt infinitely worse than hardship.
John Randolph's simple philosopher's stone, pay as you go. Makes sense.
True economy might mean wearing old clothes, skipping luxuries, just to ensure that margin.
And the power of small savings adding up. Savings banks. Josiah Quincy's observation about servant girls funding Boston mansions through consistent saving. Nature's grinding economy. Emerson's phrase, ultimate efficiency.
And this financial control links directly to freedom. Having a little with no debt means you need no man's help. Having a lot with debt means you're constantly anxious.
Financial prudence underpins independence. Then, shifting gears emotionally, the book talks about moral sunshine, cheerfulness.
Yeah, fight depression like a crime, it says, because it hits your health. Moderation is key, except for essentials like fresh air, good food, sleep.
Interesting aside about housework being healthy exercise for girls.
Yes. And the advice: don't waste time fretting, especially about things you can't control. Better to focus on fixing one of your own faults.
Cheerfulness is framed as a real strength. The first thing, second, third for resisting temptation. It transforms misfortunes, even changes how you look and act. A priceless charm.
Examples like Beecher preaching cheerfully, Emerson saying cheerfulness makes knowledge valuable, enthusiastic people seeing beauty everywhere, Lord Holland's sunshiny face, Isaac Walton finding joy in small things,
It contrasts this with hypochondria, melancholy.
and then reveals the Rosicrucian great secret, contentment. Quoting Shakespeare, "My crown is called content, a crown it is that seldom kings enjoy, inner peace as the real prize."
And speaking of inner riches, the book absolutely elevates the library. Books as friends, companions, sources of joy, hope.
Uplifting the poor, the sorrowful, and crucially, knowledge cannot be stolen.
That really highlights the security of intellectual wealth, doesn't it? Choosing good books is stressed. How Cotton Mather influenced Franklin. Contrast that with harmful stuff. Ruskin teaching you how to see. Locke awakening Samuel Drew. The power of the right text.
And practical tips for reading. Franklin reading with a pen, taking notes, writing summaries or outlines, keeping index scrapbooks called a source of genius.
It's active engagement, not just passive consumption. This deep pleasure from meaningful texts versus the temporary buzz of a fiction glutton.
The love of knowledge itself is the reward. And the companionship of books. No introductions needed. The greatest minds are available to anyone. Silent levees of the immortals.
Such a democratic view of wisdom. Amazing.
So pulling these threads together, how does the book ultimately measure success? It starts with living upward, striving for the highest.
Not settling for a half-life, as Phillips Brooks put it, when you know a higher one exists. Horace Mann saw ideality, that vision, as a prophecy that realization can follow. The dream creates the possibility.
Aspiration transformed you, makes you welcome hard work, despise ease. If the aim be right, the details tend to fall into place. Your heart has to guide your hands.
And even if you don't fully reach the peak, you're stronger for the climbing, gain a broader outlook. You need that high standard for growth.
And this striving connects directly to self-trust. Emerson, famously, "Trust thyself, fruit. Learn to stand upright upon his own feet, to respect himself."
That story of the prince praying before battle. At least avoid assisting the enemy and leave the result to me. It's almost funny, but shows that reliance on self.
Schelling's idea, knowing who you are leads to knowing who you ought to be. Believing you have resources gives you resources. Kossuth called self-reliance the greatest quality of true manliness.
Grover Cleveland's nerve and absolute confidence at his inauguration. Napoleon's tactical certainty. Emperor Francis, "Nothing prevents me from being myself." Examples of conviction.
Washington Irving adding that talent needs action. A barking dog is often more useful than a sleeping lion. Self-respect is where greatness starts. And Lincoln's point, you can't fool yourself. Inner approval matters most.
All these qualities, aspiration, self-trust, they build this inner core that completely redefines success.
Because the book really goes after the conventional idea of wealth when it discusses true riches, contrasting external money with your inner state.
Whipple noting that genius often acquires poverty, that the greatest works didn't benefit their creators financially.
Pointing out that a poor artist might have more social standing than a millionaire, suggesting money-getting can have a malign influence compared to intellectual pursuits' benign effect.
And put Socrates' question, who is the richest? The answer, he who is content with the least. Contentment as nature's riches. That feels so countercultural still.
John Bright's sharp line to the millionaire, "I do, and I know that is all you are worth." Ouch!
Beecher's distinction, too. A man is made if he has money, ruined if he loses it. The book argues true ruin is losing character, not cash.
Which leads to this beautiful idea. Real ownership isn't about deeds and titles. It's about your ability to see and enjoy.
Right. Parks, galleries, libraries, nature. They're mine if I can appreciate them. This is my world now. It belongs to him who can see it, enjoy it.
All the ages have been working for me. All mankind are my servants. It's this declaration that vast wealth is accessible through cultivating your inner world, your appreciation.
Contrasted with Charles Knight dying poor after enriching others versus rich homes as glittering caverns of selfishness. And that final quote, "Better a dinner of herbs where love is than a stalled ox and hatred therewith." Inner state over outer stuff.
Really makes you pause and think about what truly adds value.
Absolutely.
So, okay, taking this 1895 perspective, focus so intensely on inner cultivation, hard work, finding wealth beyond money. How does this land for you, our listener, navigating, 2025?
Yeah, in a world that's often about external validation, quick fixes, constant distraction, how do these old principles resonate? Building character from within, paying that steady price, using adversity, staying cheerful, finding wealth and knowledge, trusting yourself.
What does larger than your calling even mean when careers shift so fast? How do you make time and concentrate when everything seems designed to pull you away?
And maybe the biggest question,
Yeah.
how do you define true riches for yourself today, looking through this lens of inner contentment and capacity?
It feels like this deep dive into an old book brings out this incredibly consistent message. Success is really an inside job.
hmm Less about what you acquire outside, more about the architecture you build inside. Your will, your discipline, your resilience, the wealth in knowing and being.
The book's core argument seems crystal clear. Your character shapes your destiny, and you build it day by day from the inside out.
Yeah. And maybe the perfect final thought comes from that story.
Mm.
The bishop asked if he was a self-made man, and his reply,
I am not made yet.
exactly. It's a journey,
Right, yeah.
not a destination. Building character, living purposefully, it's ongoing.
So the question for you is, what small step on that path will you take today, maybe guided by some of these ideas we've explored?